Good morning. I am getting a sense of deja vu because this is exactly how I started my last video. So welcome to Groundhog Day. Hey Siri, how many days has it been since the 15th of March 2020?
It was 326 days ago.
Well, welcome to Groundhog Day 326. Yesterday, however, was not a Groundhog Day for me. Yesterday, I went into a building that was not my flat. I know, I am as shocked as you are. Yesterday, I went to go and get my first COVID vaccine. I'm in the extremely clinically vulnerable category, so I've been shielding since last March. And actually, I was just thinking, this month it is Ectodermal Dysplasia Awareness Month. And when I first started this channel, I made a video talking about ectodermal dysplasia, actually ectodermal dysplasia clefting syndrome to be more specific. And that's 6 years ago, and it's so not particularly out of date. It just feels very weird watching a video from 6 years ago, and it's one that's linked in all of my videos at the bottom because I'm asked so often, what's wrong with your hands? So I always just have that video linked there so people can go to it. So I may make a video this month about ectodermal dysplasia, so that's not the video that's always linked at the bottom, and I can link that one instead. But anyway, yes, so I've had my first COVID vaccine, and I have a lot of stuff to say about that, but I'm not going to talk about it here. Today I'm going to be talking about books and cooking. But I just wanted to mention that I did make a, not a reel, a highlight on Instagram, because yesterday I talked about my experience of going to a vaccination centre, what you can expect there for you or family members who are going. I just know there's a lot of anxiety surrounding that, and also a lot of misinformation out there, which is making me really, really sad. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it here, but you can go and look at that video if you'd like to, that series of videos. I'm going to leave it there for a few weeks probably, but I'll also link a shorter Twitter thread which will be there forever, which I will link in the description box down below too. I had Pfizer today. I've got a sore arm, feeling a bit achy. You can get flu-y symptoms for about 48 hours or so after a vaccine, which is very, very normal for any vaccines. I think that the main point of doing those videos is that I've seen a lot of underplaying of COVID and a lot of overplaying of the potential side effects of getting a vaccine. And this past year in particular, I've seen so much dismissal for disabled people, vulnerable people, older people. And I guess my main point in that is just something to think about, that if your main health concern is perhaps feeling a little bit ill after getting a vaccine which cannot give you COVID, because there's a lot of misinformation about that as well. Like, it's not giving you a little bit of the virus. That's not what this is. The science behind it is so amazing. Excited by science. Like, you can't catch it from getting the vaccine. Obviously be careful going to a vaccination centre, protect yourself because you're around other people, but from the vaccine you can't catch it. If your main health concern is possibly feeling a bit ill after having a vaccine as a side effect that's entirely normal, then lucky you. I just wish we could contextualise that a lot. Anyway, I'm feeling fine, and what I would like to do today is I am setting myself a ridiculous reading challenge this month. I did it in September last year. I said, could I read an entire shelf in a month? I think I read 16 books and there were 20 on that shelf or something like that, but it was really to kickstart my reading because I'd got a bit slumpy, and I have also been a bit slumpy recently too, so I thought this would be fun. So what I have done on Instagram is I have shown you 4 shelves on my bookcase, and I have asked you to vote for which one you would like me to attempt to read in February. Don't ask me why I chose the shortest month of the year. I really don't know, but I did. So I have posted those 4. I'm going to look at the results with you, and then I'm going to talk you through all of the books on that shelf. Read and to be read are all mixed together, so I'm only going to be reading the ones on the shelf that I haven't yet read. And what I would also like to do today is show you the lunch that I'm making. I have been making this so much recently. It's become one of my favorite things, and that is Chinese dumplings. I have 2 cookbooks that I have been going back to again and again. This is Dumplings and Noodles by Pippa Middlehurst, and then Mr. M and I have also been making a lot of things from our Korean kitchen. He made kimchi at the weekend, which is fermenting in our fridge at the moment. I got to get out the label maker. That's always fun. I have loved making these sweet potato dumplings from Dumplings and Noodles, along with so many other recipes in that book. And what Pippa makes in that are things that she's essentially just pulled from her cupboard, things that she needs to use. And I'm going to be doing that today too. I do not have all the ingredients that she suggests using. We'll get to that later. I'll show you what I do end up using. I made these on Monday, I think, and it's Thursday today, and I already want to make them again. So I'm going to make that for my lunch, and then we're going to talk about books, and that's it. That's what we're doing. So to make these delicious dumplings, you need 320 grams of plain flour and a pinch of salt. You add 160 millilitres of boiled water, 80 millilitres of cold water, then knead for 10 minutes before putting that dough aside. To make the filling, I was using these rather sad looking spring onions, chopping them up, some ginger as well. She suggests using Chinese leaf, which I normally do use but I was out of, and tofu, which I was also out of. So instead I steamed some broccoli, added some miso paste, chili flakes, soy sauce, and added the broccoli, and then a mashed up roast sweet potato and several handfuls of breadcrumbs. Then it's time to roll out the dough. I'm using a pasta maker here, but you really don't need to. I always used to do it with a rolling pin. But if you are using a pasta maker, I take it down to 5. If you're using a rolling pin, roll as thin as you can. Then cut out 10 centimetre circles. I use a cookie cutter. You could also use a glass. I've done that before as well. I have these bamboo steamers, which I'm lining with baking parchment, but you can use any kind of steamer at all, anything that you can put inside a pan to steam. Just make sure you use baking parchment so they don't stick. Then put a teaspoon of filling inside each of the shapes that you have cut out, and then bring the sides up into the middle and pinch them so that you make a shell shape. Make sure that they're closed completely. You want to make sure that your fingers are dry when you're doing this. That makes it a lot easier. This recipe makes about 30 the filling, but it also makes twice the dough, so you can freeze half the dough and keep it for another time. It'll fill 2 bamboo containers like this. And now it is time to steam them, but first we need a little speed clean because that's always really satisfying. So satisfying. Okay, so then we steam them for 6 minutes. So get a pan, put some boiling water in, add your bamboo containers, or if you're using a different kind of steamer, use that. Make sure that you don't run out of water while it's steaming. Leave it there for 6 months. 6 months? Don't leave it there for 6 months. 6 minutes. Then take it off, and it will look like this, already looking delicious. But for these to make them extra delicious, you then fry them for 2 minutes in sesame oil until they have crunchy looking bottoms. That's not a phrase I thought I would ever say, but here we go. Here they are. You serve them with a dipping sauce of chili oil, soy sauce, and black rice vinegar. I cannot emphasize enough how tasty these things are. You should definitely try them. No mocking here of my chopstick skills or lack thereof. I'm doing the best I can with the fingers I have. This is the best lunch ever. Check out Pippa's book for her other recipes too. On to the books. I asked you which bookshelf I should try and read in a month. This was what you had to choose from. Okay, so the results are in. 483 people voted for shelf number 1, 429 people voted for shelf number 2. 329 people voted for shelf number 3, and 254 people voted for shelf number 4. I have a feeling that's because that shelf had all of the Ali Smith books on, and I'm sure most of you know that I have read all of those, so it wouldn't be as much of a challenge as the other ones. So you were preventing me from the easy way out, which is fair enough. So number 1 was definitely the winner with 483. Let me go and grab those books from over there and we could talk about them. It's quite a large pile of books. As I mentioned on Instagram, these are not in perfect alphabetical order. I haven't tidied the shelves in a while, so I'm sorry if that annoyed you when you were looking at the shelves when they were panning across before. So these are the books here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 31, 2, 3, 4, 34 books here. Some of them I will already have read, some of them I haven't. Let me talk to you about them. So the first one here that I've just grabbed is Flight Behaviour by Barbara Kingsolver. I have not read any of her novels. I've read her poetry. I started reading this, I think, in a try a chapter video and really, really enjoyed it. I know that a lot of her novels touch on climate crisis. This is a hefty one, so this is one I haven't read, and it's going on the to be read pile this month. Then I have 2 books from Hiromi Kawakami, which I haven't yet read. This is Record of a Night Too Brief. I think this is 3 connected stories. Yes, 3 young women experiencing loss, loneliness, and extraordinary romance in nighttime in Tokyo. And this is translated from the Japanese by Lucy North. Her short story collection, People from My Neighbourhood, was one of my favourite books last year. And then I also have her book, The 10 Loves of Mr. Nashino, which I think is it also? No, it's translated from the Japanese by Larsen, Mark and Powell. This one is also a collection of stories, but it is brought together in a novel. It's about a man called Mr. Nashino, and it is about 10 women who have loved him for various different reasons throughout his life. So his life is told through their experiences with him. This is English Animals by Laura Kaye. It's one of my favourite books of all time, so I have already read this. If you would like to hear more about it, I recorded a podcast with Laura Kaye, which I will link in the description box down below. It is about xenophobia. It is about Englishness and tradition. It's set in an old country house. It is a queer love story as well. It's so tense. There's a bit of taxidermy in here and some strange dark stuff going on. I loved this book. The next book is Passing by Nella Larsen. I have not read this one. I bought it recently. This is the book that The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett is based on, so I'm very keen to get to this one, and I will be reading it this month. This one is a proof copy of a middle grade book, the first in a series by Jess Kidd. I would say you're probably more likely to have seen her adult books knocking around YouTube. She wrote Things in Jars and other novels, but this is her first middle grade, which is called Everyday Magic. It's about a young boy called Alfie Blackstock, who has been sent to live with his aunts because his parents have died, and his aunts would quite like to pickle him. Sounds fun. I will check that one out this month. This is one that has been on my shelf for so long. It is an old school sci-fi. This is Flowers for Algernon by Danielle Keyes. I haven't read it. It's one of those books that I almost feel like I've read through a process of osmosis because so many people talk about it. It says Charlie Gordon is a floor sweeper and the gentle butt of everyone's jokes until an experiment in the enhanced of human intelligence turns him into a genius. But then Algernon the mouse, whose triumphal experiment transformation preceded his, fades and dies, and Charlie has to face the possibility that his salvation was only temporary. Reason She Goes to the Woods by Deborah K. Davies is a strange book. It's told in a series of vignettes, and you have a blank page between each one to kind of gather your thoughts a bit. It's about the twisted things that this one young girl gets up to, but the reasons behind that as well. I found it really haunting. I read it quite a long time ago now, but it has definitely stayed with me, and it's why it's been on my shelf. But I also have a proof of a new novel by hers, which I haven't yet read. This is Tirzah and the Prince of Crows, and it says that it's set in a remote valley in Wales in 1974, and Tirzah is 16, pretty, witty and wise. Brought up in a staunchly religious family, she has lived a sheltered life, but then she meets a boy. As she begins to struggle against the confines of her community, juggling everyone's expectations and trying to find her own way in the world, life takes an unexpected turn and she realises that there are many ways to be free. It sounds like it explores similar territory to Reasons She Goes to the Woods. Anna Kavan's Ice is also one that I haven't read yet. This is a post-apocalyptic book about a world where ice has descended and a man is trying to find the woman that he loves. The Alarming Palsy of James Orr by Tom Lee is about a man experiencing Bell's palsy. Again, it's a short one. Again, I haven't yet read it, so it's going on the TBR. Pew by Catherine Lacey was one of my favourite books of last year. I will link my favourite books of 2020 video in the description box down below. I had described it as Get Out meets Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, and I stand by that comparison. It's brilliant. So I've read that. I've also read these. This is When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit by Judith Kerr. This is The Other Way Round by Judith Kerr. I also have the third one somewhere. I'm not sure where that is. These are amazing. My favourite books from my childhood. This is Peter and Alice by John Logan, a play about the imagined meeting between Alice Liddell and Peter Llewellyn Davies, so the real life Peter Pan and Alice Liddell, and what they would say to each other, because they did meet one time. I so regret not being able to see this when it was on stage with Judi Dench and Ben Whishaw. I'm sure that it was incredible, but the script, it will rip your heart out and just smash it to pieces. It's amazing. I've also already read The Vegetarian by Han Kang as well, and then this is a middle grade book which I haven't read and which I bought recently. This is Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. This is about a young girl called Min Lee who decides that she's going to try and save her family by visiting the person who lives in the moon, and she meets lots of magical creatures along the way. Tigers in Red Weather by Liza Klaussmann is a book that I read pre-booktube, I think. I'm not sure why I've kept it on my shelf because it's not one of my favourite books ever. Maybe I will pass this one on to somebody else now, which is also a good thing about going through my shelves again and deciding if there's anything I would like to part with. I enjoyed it, I just don't see myself rereading it, but it gave me Great Gatsby vibes. It is set a bit later. It's during the 40s and 50s and 60s, but it's these families who come together every summer and some terrible things that happened in the past. The heat, reading this book, one of those books that you really felt the heat wave. It was really, really bizarre. This is The Family Clause by Jonas Hassan Khemiri. This I sampled recently in a reading vlog, which I'll link in the description. It was a book that had been sent to me unsolicited, so I sampled the beginning to see if I wanted to keep it, and I did. I've even put a bookmark in showing where I got up to. This is about a grandfather who's returning home from abroad to visit his children. It's a family saga, and I was drawn in by it, so it's going on the TBR pile. This is The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil. It is a proof copy. I have already read this. It came out a few years ago. This is Solar Bones by Mike McCormick. I have a couple of his books, and I haven't read any of them. And I just had a feeling that maybe he might be an author that I would enjoy. It says, Marcus Conway is dead, but sometimes on All Souls Day, the dead return to us. Set in the west of Ireland as the recession is about to strike, Solar Bones tells the story of one man's experience as his world falls apart. A beautiful and haunting elegy, this novel of order and chaos, love and loss, captures how minor decisions ripple into waves and test our integrity every day. A crime novel that I bought when I was trying to find a replacement. I will never find a replacement for Frida Klein books by Nikki French. This was one that was recommended by you, and it's one I haven't got to yet. This is The Lost by Claire McGowan. It's set in Ireland, I think. Yes, it says, not everyone who's missing is lost. When two teenage girls go missing along the Irish border, forensic psychologist Paula Maguire returns to the hometown she left years before. So I think it's one new case that opens up an old case because there are similarities between them. This is Ghost by Alan Lightman, which I read a few years ago. I enjoyed it. Not my favourite by him. My favourite by him is definitely Einstein's Dreams. So I think I will pass this one on to someone else too. And likewise, Swimming Home by Deborah Levy. This was longlisted, shortlisted for the Booker Prize a few years ago. I enjoyed this too, but I think I'll pass this on to somebody else. I think my favourite book by her is Billy and Me. This one, like with Tigers in Red Weather, you could feel the summer radiating out of this book. It was really peculiar. This is The Paper Man, which I haven't read. It's been sitting on my shelves for so many years, so hopefully I will get to it this month. It's by Gallagher Larsen. It's about a boy made out of paper, or a man made out of paper, and his life. Magical realism. Need more of that in my life at the moment. Crudo by Olivia Laing is a book I read when it came out and I really enjoyed it. This is very much rooted in the time it was written, like with Ali Smith's Seasonal Quartet. This was written very immediately over the summer of 2017. It's about love, marriage, but primarily about the political things that were going on at that time. It's also very much tied up in art, like a lot of Olivia Laing's work is. This is Bluebird, Bluebird by Attica Locke, which is the first in the Darren Matthews series. I read this in... When did I read this? Last year, in the summer, I think, in June. Really liked it. And I haven't read the second one yet, which is also on my shelf, which is Heaven, My Home. If you're looking for a great crime series, I would recommend this one. So I'll read the sequel, that's Upside Down, in February. The Essex Serpent by Rebecca Perry, I read when it came out, really enjoyed it. This cover, I still can't get over it years later. It's absolutely beautiful. The Oracle Code by Marika Nijkamp was a graphic novel that I read last year and again adored. I keep books if I really, really love them, think I'm going to reread them. This is set in the Batman universe, but you don't need any prior knowledge. Batman is actually not in here. This is about Bryony Gordon. It's got great disability rep. If you would like a graphic novel that has a fairy tale element, mystery, I just would really, really recommend this one. The Beauty of Your Face by Zahar Mustafa is one that I got last year because of a recommendation from Kendra, who I always trust, and I will link Kendra's channel in the description box down below. This is set at a school shooting, which is not a book, like a topic that I am drawn to so much in books, but because Kendra recommended it, I thought I would check it out. It says, Afaf Rahman, the daughter of Palestinian immigrants, is the principal of Nuruddin School for Girls, a Muslim school in the Chicago suburbs. One morning, a shooter radicalized by the online alt-right attacks the school. As Afaf listens to his terrifying progress, we are swept back through her memories, the bigotry she faced as a child, her mother's dreams of returning to Palestine, and the devastating disappearance of her older sister that tore her family apart. So on the TBR that goes. Death in Her Hands by Tesha Moshfegh is a book I need to read this month anyway for Patreon Book Club. I'm sure it's going to be delightfully weird, like all of her books. This is about a person who discovers a note in the woods that says, her name was Magda, nobody will ever know who killed her, it wasn't me, here is her dead body. But then the note is not attached to a dead body, so the narrator is trying to figure out if actually anybody died at all. The Art of Falling by Danielle McLaughlin is her latest novel, which came out last month. Her latest novel, her debut novel. She wrote a short story collection called Dinosaurs on Other Planet, which I loved. This is about art and a marriage that's falling apart. And then finally, this is A Girl is a Half-Formed Thing by Emma McBride. This is one of those books that I've tried to read a few times and I've always put it back on my shelf, kind of marveled at it, but have never loved it. So this is the final time I'm going to try and read it. I know it's a Marmite book and I appreciate it even if I don't end up reading it, which is a weird thing to say about a book, but you know, it is a strange book in and of itself. And then finally, this is Lark by Anthony McGowan, which is a middle grade book, which actually won the Carnegie last year. Things are getting tense at home for Nikki and Kenny as they wait for a visit from their estranged mum. To escape, they go for a walk on the moors, taking their little Jack Russell Terrier with them. But what should have been a laugh, a lark, turns deadly when the weather changes and they are caught in a blizzard. Nothing will ever be the same again. So, books that I haven't read, let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20. Okay, here they are. Let me hold them up. 20. These are the books that I have to try and read in February. And I'm sure that I will do some reading vlogs showing you my progress as I'm going, and then of course I will update you at the end of the month telling you how many I read and my thoughts on them. I'm slightly intimidated but also excited. I'm not putting huge amounts of pressure on myself to do this. It's just a way of encouraging me to read more than I would otherwise, and then make more reading vlogs for you because I enjoy making those as well. You can place your bet bets, if you like, in the comment section down below, telling me how many you think I will be able to get to. I would love to know what you have been reading recently. Let me know in a comment down below. I hope you're all doing okay, and I'm sending you all lots of love. Bye.